It didn't happen all at once. One autumn afternoon in Vermont, as golden leaves drifted outside her window, Aunt Eleanor looked up from her knitting and asked, "What day is it again, sweetheart?" I smiled. "Thursday." She nodded, but her gaze lingered somewhere distant, like she was listening to a sound the rest of us couldn't hear. At the time, we brushed it off. A simple lapse in memory, nothing more. She was 83 after all. But looking back now, that was the first whisper of change. Not a scream, not a cry for help, just a subtle shift in her rhythm. You see, death in old age rarely arrives like a thunderstorm. More often, it's a sunset, gradual, gentle, and quiet. The body knows. It begins its farewell long before we do. And if we learn to listen, we can walk that road with our loved ones, not in panic, but in peace. In this story, I'll guide you through four subtle signs that often appear months, sometimes even a year, before a person's final chapter. These signs don't shout, they whisper. And by recognizing them early, we give ourselves something precious, the chance to prepare emotionally, to offer comfort, and to make every moment matter. Sign 1. Unexplained weight loss. When the body quietly lets go. Aunt Eleanor had always loved her afternoon tea with 2 butter cookies, but one day she left half of one untouched. Then she stopped asking for them altogether. At first we thought she was simply watching her sugar, but her clothes started hanging looser. Her wedding ring spun freely on her finger. It wasn't just about food, it was about fading appetite, yes, but also something deeper. In the months that followed, she grew noticeably thinner. No matter how much we encouraged her to eat, her favorite soup, creamy shakes, even warm toast with peach jam, her weight continued to drop, quietly, steadily. This wasn't a diet. It was the body beginning to pull back from life. You see, when someone is nearing the final stretch of life, the body begins slowing digestion, reducing nutrient absorption, and losing muscle mass. The metabolism no longer burns with urgency. Appetite fades not because of mood, but because the body no longer signals hunger the way it once did. Even taste may begin to dull. Food doesn't taste right. Favorite dishes lose their charm. It's as if the body is whispering, "I no longer need this." And it's not just physical. The strength once found in her hands, the hands that raised children, baked bread, wrote letters, began to disappear. Holding a mug became tiring. Opening jars required help. Her energy slipped away with each passing week. Some families might feel desperate. "She needs to eat," they say. They offer meal replacements, protein shakes, snacks every hour. But sometimes the weight loss isn't about nutrition at all. It's the body preparing, gently, for a deeper journey. That's when we realize something. Instead of trying to force more meals, we needed to shift our focus from calories to comfort. Warm soups, soft textures, hydration, her favorite herbal tea. Not to extend life, but to soften the edges of its ending. If this message is touching something inside you, if you've noticed similar signs in someone you care about, let us know by commenting below with a simple, "I'm here." You're not alone. And if you'd like to walk this journey with us, consider subscribing and turning on the bell icon. We share more gentle stories like this, designed to inform, comfort, and prepare. When someone begins to lose weight for no clear reason, especially when accompanied by fatigue, disinterest in food, or muscle weakness, it may be one of the earliest signs that life is entering its final, quiet phase. Recognizing this isn't about giving up. It's about showing up with more love, more presence, and fewer expectations. It's about creating space for dignity instead of chasing diets and prescriptions. It's about holding their hand and saying, "I see you. I'm with you. You're not alone." Coming up in Chapter 2, the exhaustion that doesn't go away, when rest no longer restores. In the next chapter, we'll explore how profound, persistent fatigue becomes one of the clearest signals the body is slowing down, and how we, as loved ones, can respond, not with frustration, but with grace. When rest no longer restores, the weight of invisible exhaustion. It started with the morning walks. For over a decade, Aunt Eleanor would lace up her soft blue sneakers and stroll down Maple Lane just after sunrise. Rain or shine, her quiet footsteps marked the rhythm of the neighborhood. But one day, she didn't go. "I think I'll stay in this morning," she said with a gentle smile. "Maybe tomorrow." Tomorrow came, and she stayed in again. We thought she was just feeling under the weather. Maybe she hadn't slept well. But the days began to stack, like books on a shelf. Her energy no longer returned, not with naps, not with rest, not even after a full night's sleep. That's when we realized this wasn't ordinary tiredness. It was something deeper, something we couldn't fix with coffee or encouragement. The kind of fatigue that doesn't fade. This kind of exhaustion doesn't come from staying up late or working too hard. It comes from within, when the body begins reallocating its last reserves of energy to only what is essential. Every breath, every heartbeat, every blink takes more effort. Getting out of bed feels like climbing a hill. Showering becomes a mountain. Even holding a conversation requires more strength than it used to. This profound tiredness is not laziness. It's the body entering conservation mode. The heart slows, circulation weakens, muscles begin to atrophy. And the body, wise and ancient, knows it's time to rest more, do less. Aunt Eleanor began sleeping longer in the afternoons. She'd nod off mid-sentence. She stopped answering the phone as often. Her favorite book sat unopened on the side table. It was as if her spirit was beginning to retreat, step by step, breath by breath. If you've ever witnessed this kind of fatigue in someone close to you, let us know in the comments below. It can feel confusing at first, sometimes even frustrating. But you're not alone in this. And if this video is helping you see things more clearly, please consider subscribing. These stories are here to guide you with care and compassion. Fatigue isn't just physical, it's emotional. There's another layer too, one that's harder to see. When someone who was once independent starts needing help, it can be emotionally devastating for them. Eleanor, always proud, always capable, began quietly apologizing when she couldn't carry her plate or when we had to help her button her blouse. She didn't just feel tired, she felt like a burden. This often leads to emotional withdrawal. They stop initiating conversations. They say no to visitors. They smile less. Not because they're ungrateful or cold, but because even joy takes energy. And here's where many families struggle. We try to motivate, push, cheer them on. "Come on, let's go outside for some fresh air," what we say. But what they need, this isn't motivation. What they need is permission to slow down, to rest, to feel safe, even in stillness. The gentle response. Once we understood this, we stopped urging. We started adjusting. We brought her tea to her chair. We turned reading into audiobooks. We replaced outings with music and warm blankets by the window. And suddenly, Eleanor smiled again. Not because her energy returned, but because we met her where she was. That's the invitation of this stage of life, to stop measuring value by productivity and start measuring it by presence. Coming up in Chapter 3, the mind grows quiet. When confusion and withdrawal begin. In the next chapter, we'll explore how the mind too begins to change, sometimes subtly, sometimes suddenly, and how we can stay connected even as memory fades. When the mind grows quiet, fading between worlds, there's a moment you never forget. For me, it was the day Aunt Eleanor looked up at me and said, "Your voice sounds so familiar. Remind me again, what's your name?" She smiled politely, genuinely, but behind her eyes I saw it, a flicker of uncertainty. The map she once carried in her mind, of names, faces, memories, was slowly losing its lines. We sat there in silence, the air heavy with what neither of us wanted to admit. The mind, like the body, slows. Most people expect aging to touch the body first, the knees, the back, the appetite. But sometimes the most painful changes begin within. In the final year of life, many elders begin to experience what I can only describe as a soft unraveling. At first it's small. They forget where they placed their glasses. They ask the same question twice. They pause mid-sentence, searching for a word that just won't come. But over time, those moments stretch longer. Names disappear, days blur together. And sometimes, so do people. This isn't the forgetfulness of a busy mind. It's the brain quietly winding down, just as the heart, lungs, and limbs begin to slow. And then comes the withdrawal. Even when they're physically present, they may seem far away. You call their name, but their gaze lingers on the horizon. You tell a story, and they nod but don't really respond. Not because they don't care, but because connection itself takes energy, emotion, focus, and slowly those become harder to summon. In Eleanor's final months, she stopped attending family dinners. Too much noise, she'd say. She'd sit by the window instead, wrapped in her shawl, watching the birds come and go. At first, we thought she was upset, maybe even depressed. But the truth was quieter. Her world was shrinking, not in sadness, but in scope. She no longer needed conversation. She needed calm, not stimulation, but stillness. Have you seen this in someone you love? A once lively presence becoming quiet, withdrawn, harder to reach? If so, share your story in the comments. We read every word and you're not alone. And if this video has helped you feel a little more prepared, consider subscribing. It means the world to us and helps us create more gentle guides for those walking this path. How to love through the silence. This is perhaps the hardest part for families, when the person you love is still here, but slipping away in mind and spirit. But here's something I've learned, and I hope you hold on to it. Even if they forget who you are, they still feel your presence. Even if they don't respond, they still hear your tone. Even if the words are gone, the love remains. So speak gently, sit quietly, play familiar music, hold their hand without expectation. Tell stories not to be remembered, but to give them the feeling of being home. There is beauty in this chapter too. A slower kind of love, a quieter kind of presence, and sometimes in the stillness. You may find moments of lucidity so precious, they feel like gifts from another world. Coming up in chapter 4, the final signals, breaths, circulation, and the body's last messages. In our final chapter, we'll gently explore the most physical signs that the end is drawing near. Changes in breathing, color, and presence, and how we can bring peace, dignity, and grace to the final moments. The final signals. When the body begins to whisper goodbye. By late winter, Aunt Eleanor's world had grown very small. The hallway felt like a journey. Her voice, once so warm and full, became a whisper, and her breaths, they changed. They came slower, softer. Sometimes they paused altogether for what felt like forever, only to start again in a sudden, shallow gasp. Her chest would rise unevenly. Her lips looked pale. Her hands felt cold. We knew then, she wasn't just resting. Her body was letting go. When breathing becomes a message, one of the clearest signs that a loved one is nearing life's end is a change in how they breathe. It might begin subtly, slower breaths, longer pauses, more mouth breathing. Then a rhythm emerges. Deep breaths followed by moments of stillness. This is called Cheney-Stokes breathing, and it's often the body's quiet way of saying the end is near. These moments can be frightening if you don't understand them. But when you do, you realize, this isn't suffering, it's transition. The lungs are not failing, they're slowing to match the rhythm of the heart, the slowing of the blood, the quieting of the mind. You may notice coolness in the hands and feet, a bluish tint to the fingertips or nose, even a sudden burst of clarity where they seem awake, alert, like their old self, followed by deep fatigue. It's not a return, it's a goodbye, a soul gathering strength for its final breath. In those moments, the most powerful gift you can give is your presence. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need perfect words. All they need is to know they are not alone. Sit beside them, place a hand on their heart, speak softly, thank them, forgive them, tell them they are safe, tell them they are loved. And when the time comes, let peace be the final companion. If you've walked this path, or you're walking it now, take a moment to share one thing you've learned or one thing you'll carry forward. Your story may be the light someone else needs in their darkest hour. And if this video has helped you, consider subscribing. Your presence here allows us to continue creating gentle guides for others on this deeply human journey. Final thoughts. Turning fear into presence. Death, when we fear it, feels like a thief. But when we understand it, it becomes a teacher. It reminds us to slow down, to say I love you while we still can, to treasure small smiles, quiet moments, shared silence. Aunt Eleanor passed just before spring. The snow was still thick on the windowsill, but her room felt warm. She didn't speak in the final hour, but she squeezed my hand gently like a promise. And then she let go. What remains is not pain, not fear, but love, and the gift of being present when it mattered most. Thank you for being here. If this story brought you peace or helped you feel less alone, please like, comment, and share it with someone who may need it. And if you're ready, subscribe and join us on this journey. We tell stories that matter, stories that heal. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of each other, and never underestimate the power of simply being there.